Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Wild Talk podcast with myself, Dan, and Corey. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm not doing too bad at all. Yeah. How are you? How was Scotland?
I'm good. Scotland was great, despite the wind and the rain and the cold. I'm getting back at 4:30 this morning or yesterday when you guys are listening to it. But yeah, no, apart from that, we're good, mate.
Yeah, we had a brief chat about Scotland earlier on, and you sounded like you were just been on a 4-day bender, which was which was brilliant.
Yeah, it was long, it was knackering, but yeah, it was worth it in the
I
end.
just, for me, if I've spent that long doing photography, especially up in Scotland, I couldn't think of anything worse than driving back at like leaving at midnight and coming back at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I won't want to be wouldn't be in that much of a rush to get home.
Oh, I wasn't in a rush to get home. I just didn't have anywhere to stay.
Oh,
And I didn't fancy sleeping in my car either.
I mean, I could have pointed you in the direction of the best pine Martin had in the northwest.
Oh, I've heard about this one.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
leave that
controversy, controversy. Oh, drama.
there. If you're listening, some of you'll know, and some of you won't know.
Some of you will be very aware of that little in joke there.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
It is really funny.
We'll leave that there. So, what was the highlight of the trip then? What did you? I mean, if I was in your position, I know what my highlight of your trip would be. But go on, you tell me what.
For me, and I think I know where you were going with that. Were you going to say Pine Martins?
No, actually, I think you'd be pleasantly
Ah,
surprised. I wasn't. Obviously, Pine Martin's going to be brilliant, but no, not for me.
Crested. Were you going Crested Tits?
100% crested
Yeah,
tits. Yeah.
I agree with you. I was going down that route as well. Yeah, I mean, I've had photos of them in the past, but
It
nothing
was some
quite
beautiful
as
photos, to be
nice as
fair.
what I've had this time around, and
They're
as
a,
many photos as well.
they're a dream subject. I mean, last time I went looking for them up at Loch Garten, we just went wrong time of year because we was there in July, and obviously over the summer the dirt tend to be down
No,
as much. They're quite hidden
winter's
away.
definitely best.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I'm there this weekend, so it's going to be hopeful that we do come across them.
There was quite a few up at Loch Garten this time, so yeah,
Yeah, well, we're
fingers
definitely going to be
crossed.
going back there. Obviously, we've got a morning planned with Mountain Hares, and then I think we're going to split the day up. And it's only an hour away to Lochgarten from where we actually are, so we're going to venture up there and hopefully come across them. I mean, at the minute, a record image would be enough for me, especially with what we've already got planned. But yeah, it'd be great to see them.
Oh, fingers crossed you do, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm not too hopeful.
No, be hopeful. Go into it positive.
Oh, positive. That doesn't sum me up.
No, I don't sum me up either.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
obviously,
we're going off on a tangent there.
yeah, I mean,
So,
we've had a bit of a reflection on last podcast, and we've had a lot of feedback on it, and everybody's quite happy with it. I've had some great messages. I just need to clarify to everybody as well. I do not have a lisp. I do not. I do not have the voice that it appeared. There's some sort of weird audio problem. So I've been that paranoid. I've spent 120 odd quid on microphones to make sure I sound better this time. And hopefully, when we play it back, my audio is much better. Because yeah, that was awful to listen to.
It sounds
People,
all right now.
yeah, it sounds all right now because I've spent the money to make it sound all right.
But then again, it sounded all right last episode as well. But
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, you're more critical of your own work and your own
voice,
yeah, and that's one thing I hate is my own voice.
yeah, there's nothing worse than listening back to your own voice.
Yeah, obviously we were just chatting a minute ago about accents and stuff like that, and the whole accent is just awful. It's an
Yes,
awful accent.
it's a grim accent.
Yeah, I mean it's up there. I mean, I feel bad saying this because I've got some really good friends from this area, but it's up there with the Birmingham accent.
Oh,
Oh bloody hell!
oh,
Oh
that's oh,
yeah,
I
I
don't know.
mean it's grim the Birmingham accent. Not as bad as the Scouse accent.
Just conscious that in a few weeks we have got someone from Birmingham on, so
Oh no, and
they they're
he's one of
probably
my
handsome.
he's one of my best friends. He's gonna be there when I get married and stuff like that. I feel like I've earned the right to sit there and slag off his accent.
Oh, his mic come in as well. Oh, that'd be nice.
No, no, I'm not about Mike.
Are we not? Oh, were you not on about Mike?
No, obviously Mike is a good friend of mine. I do love Mike to bits. No, Dan.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
down a Brummy as well. Oh,
Dan is a Brummie. Yeah. They're both Brummies, and yeah, their accents are absolutely disgusting. Sorry, guys, but No, they're not that bad. I poke fun. It's not horrendous. There could be worse. So
It's definitely
yeah,
worse.
again, another tangent.
We're useless at this. We are really useless.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to today's episode. It's a topic that we've both spoken about before, kind of jokingly, and then we've both got quite passionate about it in some areas. And it's definitely a topic that kind of divides wildlife photographers.
Yeah, it definitely does. And on that, I would like to introduce our guest. It's Mr. Andy Green from spaceman.pics on Instagram. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. No
Very
problem.
happy to have you on.
Very.
Obviously, the reason why we've got you on is because of conversations and stuff. Obviously, they're not the only reason. But the conversation we've had in brief recently in the past about kind of professionalism amongst the hobby, I think it just really makes for an interesting topic, and especially with what you got coming up as well. It's yeah, we should have a really good discussion about it, I reckon.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll keep you on topic.
We need somebody to do, mate. We need somebody.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're so bad at it. But yeah, well, it's we're not an uptight podcast. It's nice just kind of sit back and relax. But yeah, as long as we don't spend an hour and 15 minutes chatting about I don't know, the difference between chickadees and tits, like it's it should be good. So Andy, obviously I haven't known you for that long. Kind of came across you on Instagram for recommendations. One of my friends is a big fan of your work, so I kind of checked you out and stuff like that, and big fan. So for the people that don't know you, don't follow you on Instagram and stuff like that, can you just give us a bit of an introduction to what you do and kind of the styles of, obviously you're more popular for certain creative things that you do with your photography. So you can give us a bit of an introduction to that for us.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you say, it's at spaceman.pics on Instagram, and yeah, wildlife photographer slash editor slash hide owner slash lots of different things. But yeah, I think one of the probably the core or the key thing you just said there is actually having a specific style. I think a lot of the comments I get these days and or messages I get from people is about particular types of style and also making your own style in your grid, as it were, on Instagram or your wider portfolio. And there's something I've worked quite hard on. So yeah, mainly British wildlife. With my creative business that I run as well, I don't get a lot of time to go on overseas trips. I do a lot of British wildlife. Also run a hide down here in Kent as well. And outside of the going around actually taking pictures, I offer workshops and editing workshops and all sorts of other different bits and pieces. So that's all on the side of, as I say, on the side of working my own business, which is a creative business in marketing as well. So very busy all the time, always looking for something new, probably taking on too many things at once, but keeping life interesting, I suppose.
It definitely sounds like you've got life interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, I did full-time employment for most of my working life in sales and in furniture sales, and earlier on in carpet sales. So it was about time I did something that maybe I was a bit more interested in, a bit more
Furniture
exciting.
sales, living the dream.
Yeah.
Funny that you say that, because on my memories on Facebook today, I started work very briefly, might I add, at I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to get emails from lawyers, but at a furniture company over here in Hull, widely known across the country, and yeah, it was the worst 2 weeks of my life.
Well, I did it, and I still work some of the time in it for probably almost 20 years now. So 2 weeks sounds like a dream, but yeah, the one thing though I would say is that having a background in something else, in business, in working hard in a different career, does really set you up for, I suppose, some of the realities of not just wildlife photography as a hobby and enjoying it, which is obviously, I think, the primary reason that anyone should be doing it anyway, but thinking about how to make some money, a lot of money, a full-time career, a business or whatever. There's a lot of different facets to it, and ultimately I think the main thing is sort of hard work, really. So yeah, having that ethos in the background, I think, of a prior life working in sales and then marketing is something pretty key. I don't think many people sort of are lucky enough to start in wildlife photography at 16. I think most people, certainly a lot of people I speak to, are much older than that, and particularly people who are making money out of it are at least late
well on a
20s,
little bit.
30s, 40s. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Dan will agree with me. Wildlife photography isn't something you start doing because of the money; it's because of the love of it. I mean, I would class Dan as, if you're going by, I don't want to. Actually, no, I won't say this yet because it's not. We'll get on to that soon. But obviously, Dan, you make a bit of money from your photography, don't you?
Yeah, I make a bit, not anything, or not enough to quit my full-time job in IT, but yeah, enough to pay for the nice trips and maybe an upgraded camera here and there. But yeah, nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's. I don't think I've ever, apart from brief bits and bobs last year when I briefly ran my own hide, I don't ever think I've really earned much money from wildlife. That's why I do weddings on the side of it. It's a tough industry for the business side of things, and you definitely don't get into it for that. I think if somebody comes in with that mindset of, yeah, I'm going to take up wildlife photography because I want to earn money from it, they're going to be in for a pretty nasty shock, to be fair. I mean, how long have you actually been running the business side of it from, Andy?
Well, I suppose from a photography business in a wider sense, I've been doing that now for about 10 years, but that has included doing interior stuff, headshots, product stuff, all sorts
The
of
nitty
stuff
gritty
like that.
stuff.
Yeah, it's like you said, you do have to have a love for photography as a whole. It's a bit like being at school. If you hate maths, you're probably not going to be very good at maths. But if you love art, you're probably going to do a lot of it. And I think that's the case with photography. If you love it, then you're probably willing to put a lot of hard work into either be the best you can be because you just want to in your spare time, or build a business. And so after quite a while of doing photography in different genres, only about 2000 and I think it was 17 maybe. Um, I went to a trip with my wife to the New Forest and took my first pictures of some birds and some insects and things like that. And it was really only 5.5, 6 years later that I'm making a bit of money out of it. Again, not huge amounts of cash, but a lot of strings to the bow and a lot of sort of different revenue streams to look at. But it does feel a little bit like sometimes I have two full-time jobs that I work. So it's certainly not easy, but because I love it, it's a passion that I don't mind working on.
It's nice to have that, isn't it? I mean, you kind of beat me to my next question, which was, how did you get into wildlife photography? Which obviously I'm assuming is that kind of trip of taking a few bits and pieces here and there. But yeah,
Yeah, funnily enough, I took a picture of a beetle, which I now look at, and it's out of focus and overexposed and incredibly low quality. But when
it's a
I got
learning
back,
process, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And the weird thing is that when I got back from that trip, I posted it, I think, on Facebook or just for my friends to see and family. But a small record company messaged me asking if they could use the picture of the beetle for some kind of thing that they were doing online. I'm not sure what it was now. I can't quite remember. But I thought, oh, that's interesting because, at the time I loved the picture. But now I look back and I cringe a bit at it. But, like you said, it's a learning process. And certainly on Instagram particularly, I get a lot of people talking to me and asking me questions about editing and quality of photography and all that kind of stuff. And it's certainly not a click your fingers and just, you're fairly good at it. It's a years of training, developing YouTube, going out, using your camera, learning editing, doing all that stuff. So, yeah, but the passion's got to be there.
100%. I completely agree. It's like you mentioned earlier, Andy, or was it you, Corey? I can't quite remember now. But if someone's starting and instantly thinking that, and this is for any sort of genre of photography that they're going to be making money off the bat, they're going to, yeah, like you said, get a nasty shock. You've just got to have the love there and the passion to do it. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning. I mean, there's times where I've set an alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning, and the last thing I want to do is get up, but You
Push
know,
yourself through it, don't you?
you push yourself through, and it's all worth it in the end. And it helps you build your portfolio and get your name out there a bit more.
I'm a strong
Yeah,
believer
it
in
does.
you get out you get back what you put
You
into
get back what you
something.
put in. Absolutely.
And it's these. I mean, fair enough. Like obviously, my partner, we get married soon, and I'm sure she has a lot in mind that she would rather I spend money on. But she's very supportive of the fact that I do spend a bit of money on my hobby, and I've probably spent more on wildlife photography. Well, definitely have than what's come back to me. But she very much understands that if I don't put this effort in now, in something that I want to continue for the rest of my life, in 10 years' time, I could just be stuck doing a crappy 9 till 5 retail job, which is fine for some people. But when you've got aspirations, when you've got goals and achievements you want to aim for, you need to put the effort and time in now. And if that means spending a bit of money here and there, and if that means having a 15-hour day being out in the field or going to give talks on aspects of photography and doing all the nitty photography that you don't necessarily want to do, but it's going to pay the bills, then it just means doing it.
Yeah, this is it. And I think having that support system of someone, either a partner or friends or family that kind of support you doing it. I have heard people talk quite a few times in the past about photography being a fairly it's not lonely, maybe not the word, but it's one of those things you go out and you spend a lot of time maybe on your own walking around a field and you spent 8 hours and you've got one picture, you're really proud of it, and you show it to someone and they go, "Oh, that's good." And
Yeah,
then
people don't understand, do they?
yeah, you show it to another photographer and they say, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I can't believe what you've done and what you've done with the edit." I'm very lucky. My wife and my family and my friends actually, very supportive of everything I do, which is great.
You
But
need that in your life, don't you?
you do. I think you do for everything, clearly. But certainly, I get a lot of messages, particularly on Instagram account, from people who clearly don't get quite the support they do, or they need, and also people who, like you said a bit earlier, that sort of the questions often very broadly. How do I just get what you do? How do I do what you do, and how do I make money? And it's such a long, complicated answer, that the
It's an
idea of
answer that has
asking,
so many stems to it as well. It's not just a simple, this is how you do it.
yeah,
I think it's a very opinionated answer, which is what we'll kind of move on to in a minute. It's the opinion side of it all, because one person's idea of how you might set up a successful wildlife business could be like what you do, run a commercial hide, run workshops. Another person's idea of running a successful business would be like what Dan does. Dan sells a lot of prints. Dan does a lot of calendars. I mean, how many years in a row have you done calendars now, Dan?
Oh, maybe the last 5 years, I think. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably the last five.
And
The print side of it used to be it used to be good, but unfortunately, over the years, the whole market has become rather saturated with people just thinking, "Oh, I can sell a print for 60 quid,"
mm,
and that's that, and it just becomes, it's so saturated. So many people, want to sell stuff. I mean, I've been turned away from Christmas markets and, craft stalls over the years just because they've already got 3 or 4 photographers all trying to fight for that one space. So yeah, it's very saturated, but
that's
yeah.
why with prints, I don't even. I mean, occasionally, like at the minute, I've got a bit of a stack of prints I could do with getting rid of, but I don't actively advertise prints. I put a post up and I just put underneath it available for prints. So if people want to buy it, they can just get in touch with me. They can buy it, but I won't sit there and go, "I've got this in this size, I've got that in this size for £600, and it comes in its own shiny little frame, and I'll pop my signature on it," even though nobody knows who I am and I'm not some sort of like expert professional celebrity. Like people are just glorifying themselves too much to get that money. So we'll get
And
off that
Facebook's pretty useless for selling prints of wildlife anyway.
because it crushes the quality
Well,
massively.
not even that. So I put a photograph of a kingfisher for sale on the Facebook Marketplace, and it got instantly removed because apparently I was trying to sell a live animal. They just deleted the post straight away.
Yeah, have a photo and a live kingfisher.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's mad though. But the trouble with the print side of it is a difficult one. There's obviously there's different ways of doing that. So, for instance, I've got a Canon Pro printer at home, so I can print up to A3 myself to to a very high standard. So you can make a fairly decent profit margin on that, but you still have to sell a lot of them if you really wanted to make a career out of that.
And you got to think, sorry, how much I obviously don't have to tell us, but that printer probably wasn't even cheap either. So you got to think how many prints you've actually got to sell before you even made your money back to the printer itself.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you know, that question of a professional photography in itself is you could talk about gear and how you actually you know, price your gear and your printers into your pricing for a start. But yeah, that the printer I've got is a can't remember, £500-600 printer. So, you know, and if you're selling multiple prints of the same picture and it's literally an A3 that you're putting in a tube and sending someone, unless you can price that really high, you've got quite a few to sell before you pay off your printer.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, and the ink is £100 to fill up, you know, after a few prints have gone off. So, and there's things like, you know, for instance, I'm on, I don't know if you've heard of Displate, where they print onto metal.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite loaded with lots of kind of film poster type art and that kind of stuff. But again, the problem with that is that I've sold a few on there. It's really nice quality, and I've had them. I get a discount for being a creator on there. But if you buy something for 30 quid off there of mine, I get about £1.50.
Exactly.
So
that's
it sounds very similar to that. Is it Redbubble or something? That site. I've got a couple of things on there, and it's like you say, you know, you might sell something for like maybe a tenner, and then I'll get an email saying, "Oh, here's 63 pence." I'm like, "Oh, thanks very much."
Spotify, for example, if you're a moneymaker on Spotify, we're not talking like Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift standards. Don't know why I chose them two. I'm not an active Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift listener.
Are you sure? You admitting something there, mate?
I'm a very, very heavy metal listener. But okay, actually, I'll use this as an example. So I listen to heavy metal, and recently I've listened to a lot of foreign metal, so Mongolian stuff, Russian stuff, and these bands, they get a fair amount of viewers and listeners each month. But for every listener they get, Spotify will pay them like something like 0.00001 pence per listener. And you've got to think, just to get that track on Spotify, they've probably spent a couple of £100 to hire a recording studio, then another couple of £100 to hire an editor, and then the album art and things like that. And then Spotify have probably earned a fortune from that song, which I think Spotify are a brilliant platform, and they really are. But for the creative side of it, and it can very easily be tied into photography. So selling prints and selling calendars. Dan might sell a calendar for £10, but that calendar might have cost him £9.50 to make. Like, the margin to make money is so tight. Even on obviously commercial high point of view, fair enough, you can charge for the hours that you're giving people. You can charge whatever you want if you're providing a good service. But the money that you probably spend renting that land or owning that land or whatever, the money that you spent building that land together, upkeeping the hide, feeding the birds and whatever comes down, heating, licensed business tax, things like that, you're left with, I mean, you've got to put a lot of time and a lot of graft into it, even be left with some sort of profit. And that's why I'm currently in no rush to follow that route, because I have a good job where I don't have to worry about anything like that. I work minimal hours per week and still earn a decent living. I think companies are paying far too much now for a lot of people to even kind of get that motivation to follow it. Yeah,
I think this is the problem. And I think one of the things that you can do from a photography point of view, if you're looking at passion and enjoying something, the nice thing about photography is you can do your 9 to 5, but also on the side do the photography at the weekends and in the evenings. And if you want to put prints up for sale and you want to do workshops or have a Patreon site or any of those kind of things, you can do it as an aside and make that extra money for trips, for your gear.
Just a bit of pocket money, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and because you really enjoy it, you're finishing your at 5 o'clock your day job, and you're thinking, I can't wait to get home because it's summer and I've got 4 hours until it gets dark. And I think touching on something you guys talked about in your first podcast was is well-being and wellness in general, both body and mind, I suppose. But having something that you're excited about and you really enjoy, and also you have an end result which you can tell everyone about and show everyone, a photo. It's great for well-being, because if you have a job that you're not overly keen on, and then at the weekend you can go out, get some air, walk around, and create an incredible image, and then show everyone, that's got to be a good thing.
100%. And again, I mean, as all of us are photographers, we'll all agree on this. I've not met, I don't know about you, Dan, I don't know about you, Andy, but I've not met a single photographer that doesn't. Oh, sorry, I've met a few people that have claimed this, but it's not true. I've not met anybody that doesn't, not necessarily thrive, but get a bit of a buzz off somebody recognizing their work, because that's what you can't sit there and say, oh, I only share my stuff to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter just for me. Like, you don't. You're sharing it to a public platform. You're doing it for that reason.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, I had this experience yesterday. I was going to a kingfisher hide, and 2 hour drive away, needed to get up at 5 to get there. And the massive positive was I got there, and the guy I met there recognized my account, and I was like, "Oh, you're spaceman.pics," and he followed me and all that. And it was, it's a buzz. It's exciting. It's nice, and we had a fantastic chat all day. The downside is we didn't see one kingfisher all day long.
You're gonna have that though, aren't you?
And this is it. I had a 2 hour drive home in rush hour to across 4 motorways and about 100 miles. And so my trip was 5 in the morning till about 7 at night, and I didn't get a picture out of it. And so that's wildlife, and I still enjoyed the day, but you have to put that graft in, because for every day like that, there's another day where I might post a picture of a kingfisher that turned up the second I arrived, and got a few thousand likes and comments and shares, and you build that community from that picture. But yesterday I had a day we didn't get a single one, and it cost me quite a lot of money.
And it's what people often say to me. They say, "Oh, you're just..." Now, I don't know whether you know this, Andy. I'm just going off on a tangent here, but I think me and Corey, we alluded to this very briefly in our first step, but we are probably the two most disliked photographers in certainly our area. I don't want to say the country, because I'm sure there's some others that'll take the title, but
You seem
yeah.
so nice.
Well, I know.
Do you know what it
it's
is?
so strange.
It's the older generation. So for myself, I'm not disliked by a lot of people like Dan. Dan's block list.
I can see that. I can see that.
I have a few. I have a small fan club of elderly gentlemen that particularly like me, and that's because I very much love the social media side of it. I'll put photos on, and I'll tag Cerny. Do you want to shout out to Cerny? Every single photo I put up, they like it or comment on it, which is what you want from a company that you can spend money in. I put a lot of effort into my Instagram and socials, and I do my YouTube and stuff as well, and people just don't like that. And this younger generation, I won't even say it's the younger generation, I say more the younger generation now. Social media is just such a big thing for photographers, and it's there to be taken advantage of. It's there to make yourself look like a bit of not a muppet, but just lapping it up. And you're not gonna, if you want to get somewhere in life, you've got a free site that you can use every day, unlimited times, Facebook, Instagram, for free. Use it. And some people just don't like that.
No, some people think that you're chasing likes and recognition, and you need the comments from other people to get to have validation and
you know what,
for
right?
your work and stuff.
That's probably true, 100%.
It's like you said, Andy. It's always nice if somebody supports your work and or recognizes you through your accounts and stuff. So yeah, of course. I mean, do I do it for the likes? Absolutely not. I do it for me, but it's always nice to have 30, 40 comments on a post of people that you've never met and probably will never meet from around the world, complimenting your work. It's lovely. It's great.
A couple of weeks ago, I had my first ever person out. Where was I? I can't remember where I was. maybe Nature, I can't remember. Somebody come up to me and be like, "Oh, do you do YouTube and that?" And I was like, "I do, yeah." And I was like, "Oh, I recognise you from YouTube. I watch all your videos and stuff." And I'm like, "Bloody hell!" Considering I don't get a lot of views per video, like compared to other photographers, I don't have a lot of subscribers. For me, I absolutely buzzed off that. I was thinking about that for about 3 or 4 days. Like I was just proper put a good smile on my face that did.
Yeah, you got. I mean, this is the thing. You might well do the photography for the love of it, but posting on social media, I'm going to put it out there. It is also for the likes and the comments and the shares.
100%.
But no different to if you were advertising your business or advertising yourself, or there's lots of marketing and advertising that you do in your life every day. So, and also you got to think about what you're doing photography for. If you're trying to build a life where photography is part of your world, both professionally and personally, then you're absolutely doing it for likes and shares as well. There's no doubt about that, because you need it, because you need to be seen by as many people as possible. If you want to get deals with photography equipment or photography brands, if you don't have an online presence of some sort, it's very difficult to be seen. And at the moment, we're living in a world where social media is absolutely flooded,
Yeah,
and
and
so
there's nothing wrong with
you've
that
got to do it.
either. I think the only issue with social media is it can sometimes give a bit of a false representation. So this is just going to bring up before I want to kind of move on to the main point of the podcast in a minute. But just looking at your editing style, obviously you take a very, very creative editing style. I personally like it. Me and Dan were chatting about this before you popped on. We're both big fans of kind of what you do. For me as a photographer, it's not something I would do because I'm shit at editing anyways. I can't edit. I like my style creatively. Have you ever had any problems with people kind of giving you a bit of grief for it, saying that this isn't an accurate representation because you have transformed your image massively? If you ever had any problems, because looking at your before and afters, your images are massively different to the original raw file. In some cases, not all of them, but in some cases, they are hugely different. Which again, I don't think there's anything wrong with, because that's your style. Your style as a creative, artistic photographer, as an editor. It suits you. People love it. Obviously, you do well with your workshops and your editing and stuff from it. I think it's brilliant. It's not something I would ever try because I would never make it work, because it's just me and editing. I like to run through quick subject mask, quick background mask, do the basic kind of adjustments, and that's it. But yeah, have you ever had anybody do that to you, like just give you a bit of grief for it?
Yeah. I've had comments and messages about it. I mean, it's a funny thing, really, because there is this conversation between talking about photography versus art, and arguably they're intertwined. And I think the key for me, and it's a personal choice for anyone who's doing photography, is, for me, my account has two things in it. It is absolutely honest, so I make sure that if it's an edit there, I've just done a bit of light work, composition work, whatever, then I'll say that. And if it's a full on change the background or whatever, then I'll say that as well. The second part of mine is to add as much personality into it as I can. So I show pictures of myself if I can, and stories about me talking, and that's my personal choice, because I like people to sort of know a bit about me as well as what I do. But yeah, I've had people say that. But the one thing I try to make sure of is when I edit a picture, is the subject I don't fiddle with as much. So if it's a kingfisher, I may soften the background or change the background color, change the leaves or the bokeh in the background, whatever. But I'm not mucking about with the color of the actual kingfisher, for instance. I'm not changing the blue or adding a filter over the top so the actual animal itself looks unnatural. And I think that's really important. It's something I talk about in workshops, and I talk about when people message me, is if you're going to edit, and you're going to edit in a sort of, in inverted commas, editorial type style like I do whatever you want to the foreground and the background and the coloring of that, but try and keep the bird or the squirrel or whatever it is as true as you can, because the art meeting the photography needs to be as honest as possible.
Yeah, there's a fine line, I think, between the pair of them, and if you can get that balance on either side of the line, you've set yourself up for a really nice image. And I mean, like, I've had a good look through your images. I'm literally having a look through them now just to see if I can kind of pop out any examples of one. But there is one which I'm just trying to find now of a kingfisher. Let me just see if I can quickly find it. It's not that one, no.
While you're searching for that, it's like you say, Andy, it's the honesty of it, isn't it? It's there's photography accounts out there that I've come across over the years. I'm not going to shout them out, but where they'll openly, they'll take a photograph of, I don't know, let's say a snow leopard in a zoo, and then just overlay it into a snowy background with like snow falling and stuff, and it's blatantly not true to nature, but they won't then be honest and say, oh, this is actually a captive animal. And it's the same with, these owl workshops that are seemingly cropping up more and more frequently now. And, people will post them like they're, wild animals when all they've been is just plopped on a perch for them by the handler, and then that's that. But yeah, I think honesty stems, it's a big part of wildlife photography and just photography in general. I mean,
well, I think
you've got to be true to, yourself and everybody else. You've got to be open and honest with your views.
Here's the image. So you posted this on the 2nd of June 2022. It's a kingfisher, and the original image is, I mean, as a general, like, if you class yourself as a professional wildlife, it's not a poor image, but it's just a bang average record shot. And you scroll across to your edit, and the edit has turned that bang average record shot of a kingfisher into an absolutely stunning portrait. You've zoomed right in on the subject. The background is completely different to the original. Some people might not like that, but for me, the fact that you've gone into a lot of detail, you've shown the before and after and stuff like that, and you've even said it here. I'm very open about a shot, whether it's just a bit of light and color adjustment or a full creative process like this one. Just enjoy it and post what you like. That's from your post. For me, that's fantastic. And like Dan's just said, like you've just said, it's honesty, because there's too many photographers out there that think the world is stupid, and we don't know how Lightroom works, we don't know how Photoshop works, and we don't. Oh, sorry, that's my time. If you just heard that, and you don't know how camera gear works. Like, we all know what we're looking at, and not many people are fooled by this kind of fake front that people put on, like of a buzzard flying through a field, and for some reason the buzzard and the field have completely different exposures, and there's just weird things that look, you think you're not fooling anybody. You've edited that image so badly, or sorry, not badly, but so heavily, and you've just not been honest about it. Be honest, and people appreciate it more.
Yeah, so the trouble is that a lot of the time you are fooling a lot of people, and there has been examples of I think even the Natural History Museum, when they do their World Photographer of the Year, is it, or Nature Photographer of the Year?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And I think a few years ago I remember seeing one, and it was an anteater up a termite mound. Or
yes,
something.
I remember this. It
with
sparked a lot of controversy, didn't it?
Yeah, well, essentially I think the anteater was stuffed.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And stuck on and they did a long exposure of an astro background, and so and they found it out and all that, and for me, ultimately on Instagram and any social media, you can post what you like. There's no saying you can't, but you're going to be open to criticism, comment, or whatever. So I choose to be open about it, and I'm open if I'm at a hide. For instance, if I've taken a picture at a hide, I tend to tag the hide in and say I'm at a hide. That, with all that said, if you take pictures at a hide and you post a picture of and you don't tag the hide, I don't mind that. That's up to you to do it. If you take a picture of a lion in a zoo and then you superimpose it with an incredible desert landscape behind it, and you're actually actively trying to tell people you are in a safari photo shoot, then that isn't okay. So
it's deceitful.
Yeah, if you're actively trying to deceive, then it's not ideal. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest reasons for this I find is on Instagram, particularly social media. We've had for years about people posting pictures of the perfect body, and how difficult that is for people to see and to emulate in real life. And actually, in photography, it's exactly the same. So I have messages from might be a 15-year-old young photographer getting into it, sharing a picture and saying to me, how do I do this? And I can see it straight away, and I know that it's completely not just a Photoshop, but it's almost a completely made up image. And so I then say to them, well, you unless you learn how to be an artist on Photoshop, you'll never do it. But if you go out and learn photography and work at it and work hard, then you'll get better at photography and you'll create some beautiful work. But it's doing the same thing as the perfect body being up there that people can't they aspire to but can't achieve. With photography, it's doing the same thing, and you've got to be careful because it puts people off even trying because they think, well, I can't achieve that. That's why, for instance, that image that you've chosen there is the perfect example, because that image was at Stodmarsh down in Kent in a public hide, and that's full. I think it's 600mm Sigma lens, but he's still miles away from me. It was an amazing experience. One of the first times I'd seen a kingfisher properly hunting and all that kind of stuff. But as you say, the image, I wasn't able to. In fact, no one really would have been able to get anything better in the raw because it was too far away from me. But I am a creative person. I enjoy the process and I enjoy editing. So I created that first image and then tell people about it. And so my hope then is that 15-year-old person who messaged me, anxiously wondering how he's ever going to get an image, he can read that and go, oh, okay. So not all images are perfect, but actually that's a bit of art that's been overlaid on top of a photo. So we do have to be careful with that.
Yeah, it's just about I think it's about finding your own version of perfect, and whether that's being creative, whether that's just minimal editing, but working hard to get the shot that you want. Sure. This is a topic that we could probably chat about all night, and we've already been chatting for 50 minutes. So if you guys are okay with it, I reckon we split this up into two parts of the podcast, so we don't just keep going on and on for ages on the same thing. You all right with that, Dan?
Yeah, I am. I was just going to add, I found a lot when I started out younger as a young wildlife photographer. I was just a photographer in general. You did so much comparison to people's work, and it often left me deflated. And I probably looked at photos, like you say, Andy, that probably weren't even true to life or unachievable. And it does get you down, especially when you're starting out as a young photographer. But yeah, it's just people need to be more honest with how their images were captured, and if it is a lion overlaid on a beautiful African savanna background, then yeah, it needs to be shared and made aware that that's what it is.
I think when I was kind of going through my really low point last year in life, and this wasn't photography, this was like a general low point, I found myself really disheartened from taking my camera out because I was looking at other people's works, thinking that's absolutely fantastic. And do you know what? It nearly ruined a few friendships with me and other people. Just seeing this work and just finding myself so jealous over it and just unmotivated. But
it happens to everyone, though. To be honest, I don't think it matters how many followers you get. This time last year, I had, I don't know, something like 3,000-4,000 followers or something, and yesterday I hit 16,000 followers, and the following is nice. It's nice to think of people, and I get an amazing load of comments, and I love the community I've built around that, which has been great. But you still look at other photographers and other work, and it can stress you out. And going right back to the beginning, you've got to be doing it to enjoy it. If you're anxious about it and you're worrying about your work being similar to someone else's or not as good or whatever, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. Just you really got to just get out there and get your camera and get out there and take some pictures and develop your own style and your own skills.
And that's something I quickly learned. There's no point sitting there and comparing other people's styles to your own. You've just got to go out there and make it your own and enjoy it.
Your own style.
Otherwise it just becomes, it doesn't become enjoyable if you're trying to just be somebody else.
You end up in a competition with other photographers and they're not even aware of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this has been a really good conversation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to end this at part 1, and then we're going to jump straight into part 2, where we're going to talk about professionalism. Obviously, we've touched upon little bits and bobs there, but we're going to have a good chat about the difference between a professional and non-professional, an expert and a non-expert, and I wasn't expecting us to go over this much, and we haven't even gone off tangents. To be fair, we've just had a really in-depth chat about it all. So I will end the podcast here. For series part 1 anyways, we'll release part 2 in 2 or 3 days after today. Make sure you're listening to that, and if you've been listening to this one, thank you very much. Keep an eye out on the Instagram for some updates, and we'll be back in a few days' time with part 2 of our chat with Andy Green.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed that first part, and like Corey says, we'll be back for part 2.